Hi, my name is James Andrella, and you're listening to the Back to Human podcast. Almost 15 years ago, I became interested in ketogenic diets as I was interested in weight loss and bodybuilding. I came across a book called The Anabolic Diet, which was essentially a ketogenic diet with carb cycling or carb refeeds. And the author had came up with this diet or this method because steroid abuse was rampant at the time within the bodybuilding community. And he found this to be a way to simulate the results that people were achieving with anabolic steroids naturally and without all the yo-yo dieting, which can really wreak havoc on your metabolism. Fast forward a few years, and I stumbled across some research that showed that ketogenic diets could help women who were dealing with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and also infertility. I came to learn that keto was also known as the hormone reset diet. Today's guest has had an absolutely incredible transformation. She was one time told that she would never have kids, and she was very, I'd say, underweight at the time. I'll let her really divulge into her story and her transformation. But she fell into the ketogenic lifestyle as well, and I hope to learn a little bit more about how keto has served her and how it has also helped her become fertile, as she is now in her second pregnancy. So congratulations and welcome to our guest today, Rebekah Heishman. Rebekah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah. I've had a few of your friends on. I know that you do a lot of work with Bella. Awesome little SBG meetup gang. I found you throughout her program as well.
Cool.
And I'm curious to learn some of the differences because I know that she's full carnivore. You take more of like a ketovore approach. As I saw that today, you were indulging in some cinnamon buns, right?
Yeah. Keto, high protein. Those were almost carnivore aside from the sweetener, and I could have used honey and it would have been carnivore, but yeah, so Bella is definitely strict carnivore, and I've heard her say that she remains strict because that's what keeps her symptoms at bay, and I totally respect that. I think everyone has to gauge where they're at in their healing journey and also just what works for you. So I was strict lion for a whole year. Then I was strict carnivore for another 2 years, and then I slowly started to reintroduce other foods because I realized I'm not fragile. Like I'm not fragile anymore. I don't think that we're designed to avoid whole foods per se. I think that there is a spectrum, and some people need to be more careful, and some people can be more flexible. But we're all bio-individual. So at this point in my life, it's pretty low carb. Prior to becoming pregnant again with our second, I was eating more carbs than I have ever consumed to my knowledge, but from whole food sources, making homemade einkorn sourdough, berries, in-season produce, and that's it. Nothing from a process, nothing processed or from a bag or anything like that. And I got down to my leanest, my abs were showing again, and then I got pregnant. And there was just a switch where my body started craving way more fat, way less of the carbs, and I just leaned into it. So now it's very heavily animal based with some variety, maybe some avocado, maybe some cilantro or things like that. So I guess it would be ketovore currently.
Okay. And so you said you were probably eating the most carbs that you had recently before the second pregnancy, and then now you're more of a high fat approach again?
Yep, exactly.
And you're doing well. So may I ask how far along you are?
I am just entering my second trimester, so I'm probably 13 and a half weeks today.
Nice. And what were you dealing with before? So I know a little bit about your backstory, but for my audience, would you mind sharing what health issues that you were dealing with prior and maybe how the appointment where you were told that you wouldn't have kids, what that looked like?
Yeah, so honestly, my health issues started in the 6th grade. I was diagnosed with osteoporosis in the 6th grade. In the 7th grade, I was diagnosed with multiple mood disorders, severe mood disorders that I was really struggling with. And then at the end of high school, I ran into very severe chronic pain. So at a certain point, I got off of Adderall, clonazepam, and Ambien, which I was just thrown onto. And I knew that they weren't helping and something was going very wrong. And so I decided to rip off the Band-Aid. And that's when I was diagnosed with, the first diagnoses were Addison's, Hashimoto's, and fibromyalgia, and chronic Lyme disease. but they continue to compile. The autoimmune disorders with the years and still not healing, primarily my gut, the autoimmune disorders continue to compile. I had crest scleroderma. That was rapidly taking over my internal organs, specifically my lungs. It inhibited my mobility. I actually had to do a lot of manual therapy on my back to deal with that. But that's why doctors said I shouldn't expect to live past 30 years old, because of the rate that it was increasing, the scleroderma. And then I ran into a chronic C. diff infection, and that is why I got down to 69 pounds. I had 3 fecal transplants. I had so many rounds of antibiotics. The doctors said that it was seeded in my gut and that the transplants weren't working anymore. It would basically take back over. And so that is when I really decided to switch from keto to full carnivore for a while. And it's not that keto's bad. Keto actually mitigated most of my symptoms and allowed me to live a life somewhat, but it was not allowing me to heal and seal my gut. It was the oxalate, the anti-nutrients in the spinach and the avocado, and I was doing turmeric and cumin, and I had no idea about oxalate and just how much it can bind to other nutrients and prevent absorption and just cause havoc in your body. So that was key for me, not that everyone has to go carnivore. So I dealt with a lot. I was diagnosed with over 10 autoimmune diseases. The chronic Lyme disease in itself was a whole thing. I was bedbound for a season. The scleroderma was one of the scariest things, and it was very rapidly basically taking over my internal organs.
What is that? Because I'm not too familiar with scleroderma.
Scleroderma is a hardening of your skin, and it can happen on the outside and the inside. And what I've discovered with other people working with them, crest is a variant of scleroderma, but regardless, it's a hardening of your skin. It basically, it just turns into scar tissue. And so you can imagine if scar tissue takes over your internal organs, it'll literally suffocate you. So that's where I was headed. And it's just an autoimmune disorder, a connective tissue disease, connective tissue disease was definitely like my main battle. Like I said, I had fibromyalgia, I had peripheral neuropathy. So yeah, crest is, it's scary. Some people deal with like hardening of their hands or their fingers will fuse together. It's a very serious thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you had a whole freaking laundry list of different ailments that was going on at the time. You said that this occurred when you were in 6th grade, I believe, and you were on all those medications. You had mood disorders. How I personally fell into keto was I was having tons of anxiety attacks. I had read about it, but I was doing like dirty keto at the time. I wasn't paying attention to what ingredients were in the food, sugar, alcohols, you name it. But I had a period about 3 months where I was just having nonstop anxiety attacks. I had insomnia. And then as soon as I started incorporating more fats like grass-fed butter in my coffee at the time, I followed like the bulletproof approach. All of my mental illnesses went away at the time.
Wow.
I was having to take Xanax at the time, which I wasn't prescribed. I was having to like bum them off some friends or my sister. And as soon as I started incorporating more fats, it's like a light bulb just went off in my head. Yeah. And I like that you say that you had those issues. So it seems like
they're long gone. Yeah, I'm a completely different person. Yeah, everything is reversed. I don't like that word remission because it means that it's still there. It's not. Like even my autoimmune, 0. Like antibodies for thyroid, anything, it's 0. It's not below 30. It's 0. It's reversed. The mood disorders, I was a different person. I am a completely new creation. Part of my journey is also faith and just allowing God to transform my mind and my thinking and living out of fear. I was a different person, and I definitely wouldn't have been someone to sit in front of a camera and be able to talk. I had horrible anxiety. I can definitely relate. And just to correct you, it all started in the 6th grade, but it really led up through high school. And the peak of my issues was right out of high school. When I was struggling with suffocation attacks, they said it was just anxiety. And that's when I just got off all the meds and decided I need to get to the bottom of this.
And is that when you fell into the ketovore approach initially?
That's right. Yeah. I grew up in a household that was actually fairly low sugar. I would say even at times ketogenic. I was familiar with keto for years. I have just relatives who are in the space. They teach other people, they've written books. Not going to share any names, but I was heavily influenced and I understood. Like, I didn't eat candy, I didn't eat Gushers, I didn't even get those things in my lunchbox. And I didn't really like them, but I was still sick and definitely still metabolically inflexible. And I think a lot of just what I went through in my childhood, we moved away from our childhood home. It was a very stressful time. 6th grade, started my period, lived in a hotel, multiple different schools. It was really stressful. And I do wonder how much of that was a trigger to a lot of the issues.
Yeah, I can imagine. As your body began to heal, what were some signs or some changes that you started to notice first? So you had all those different ailments. Was it like a gradual thing, one by one, like marking off the checking off the boxes, or was it kind of just like all at once everything got better? And was fertility one of your goals when you were switching over to this, because you were young at the time? Or was it kind of just like a...
Yeah, it was 2019. Yeah, 2019. I honestly thought that I missed the boat in terms of romance, marriage, kids. I was just grateful to be alive and fixing my relationship with my family. And honestly, becoming a health coach. I was like, I could do this forever. I'm alive. I'm happy. So fertility was a hope, but it was not a goal. A goal was just to function.
Yeah.
Be strong. I wanted to be strong. I was fighting just to keep weight on my body for years, and it felt so good to not have to fight for that. So I wanted to get strong and not take it for granted. I like being strong. I like working out and lifting heavy things. But the first things that I noticed were my mood definitely improved within the first 2 weeks. I had severe OCD. I had, I would have like random lines of songs playing on loop in my head. I had really weird OCD symptoms. I had bad anxiety. I had severe insomnia, depression for sure. And those dissipated for the most part. And that was huge. That alone was like, I have to keep doing this. And then the other major thing I noticed in the first 2 weeks was my energy was so much better. It wasn't hard for me to get out of bed. I wasn't dreading the morning. I would wake up and be like, wow, another day. And it was like a good thing instead of something I was sort of dreading and afraid of. And that was also huge. And then things just continued to improve. I didn't get my period back for, I think, a year and a half. I remember I was 104 pounds. I started at 69 pounds. So I was 104 pounds. I got my period back. And at that point, I had reversed every diagnosis, including the hypothyroidism, including the scleroderma. My period was one of the last things to happen. And that's very common. And that was just, that was the icing on the cake. That was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Why would you say that's common? I've heard Bella mention before how like the body's going to prioritize healing prior to weight loss. Obviously, weight loss was not one of the goals as you were struggling to maintain weight. But I imagine the body, common sense would say that the body doesn't feel like it's safe or that it can actually carry a viable pregnancy at the time. So why is it going to kind of allow for a menstrual cycle to happen when it's got other things that it has to work on? But what else have you seen with other women that are regaining their cycles?
One, you have to have a certain level of body fat on your body for your body to feel safe. And to carry a pregnancy, you need fat. And at 104 pounds, that's still pretty lean at 5'6". And then it is that sense of safety. My central nervous system was, I think, in a pretty good place at that point. But what I see with other women is that you have to be doing the right thing for at least 6 months before you actually get a cycle, before you actually have a period. So there's a lot of just time and consistency and waiting and trusting. Same goes for reversing insulin resistance. You have to be doing the right thing for months to even see that reflected on your glucose or your A1C. Same with developing insulin resistance. You don't see it reflected in your glucose actually long after the fact that it's been happening within your body. So that's how it goes with getting your cycle back. So anytime a female loses her cycle, if you can catch it early on, you can probably get it back if you just eat a ton of fat, make sure you're eating enough, supporting your body, you can get it back within a month. But I hadn't had a cycle for 16 years. And so a year and a half is a relatively short amount of time to be doing something right to get it back. And for my body to say, I can, carry a human. So that's generally what I see, is that you just have to kind of trust the process sometimes.
Was it difficult for you to embrace the thought of consuming more fats initially?
No, not at all. No. Not at all. I'm grateful. Like I said, I grew up in a household that did not have a lot of sugar, and we were not afraid of fat. I loved butter. Even as a baby, I was eating sticks of butter. I knew that the best bites of steak were next to the fat, and with some of the fat. I've never been afraid of fat, thankfully.
Nice. Yeah, my son, I would try to just feed him spoonfuls of butter, and that's the best thing for you. But people are afraid of it. What have you seen with your clients then, or how do you get them to kind of overcome this obstacle? Because I imagine that we've gone through decades where we've been told to fear fats. So how do you deal with female clients in this regard?
It's definitely certain generations that they know that they've been brainwashed, but they're still afraid, and they need me to reassure them that they're not going to have a heart attack. And I'm like, where is the science? You tell me why you would have a heart attack. It's not there. It's a lie in the first place. But even that lie has been busted publicly. So it's just honestly a lot of venting and providing information. Okay, let's just talk about the facts. The precursor to your sex hormones is cholesterol. Why are we taught to demonize and fear cholesterol? Let's talk about ideal cholesterol 300 years ago. It was above 300. Now it's below, 150? It's
going down.
It's ridiculous. So if you look at it that way, instead of just living out of the nutshell of your life experience, if you can look at timelines and research, trends with obesity and heart disease when they cut the saturated fat and replaced it with vegetable oils, seed oils, it's obvious. So it's honestly just a lot of talking back and forth and processing. They're open to accepting it. And then there are some people who just don't like eating fat, and we have to get creative. Make some waffles out of egg yolks, make hollandaise sauce, eat some lamb chops, but everyone can find a way to eat fat without making them gag.
What would you consider to be an adequate amount of fat then? Because I know that you've suggested some ratios where it's sometimes 4-to-1 fat to protein ratio.
Yeah, so I don't typically recommend that. I did that at one time when I was having non-epileptic seizures and I was bedbound. For a lot of women, though, I will recommend 2-to-1 fat to protein in grams. So if someone's eating 130 grams of protein, they should be eating 260 grams of fat. Now, that is not something that they would just start doing overnight, because I guarantee you're going to gain weight. What I will have you do is slowly increase your fat, establish a baseline. How much fat are you currently eating? Now increase by 5 grams per week. So this is going to take 90 days or even longer to work your way up to 260 grams of fat every day. But that way you've trained your body, you've trained your kidneys, your liver, your gallbladder to deal with that fat. You've upregulated your metabolism and you've upregulated your hormones. So it doesn't happen overnight. And I just want to clarify that because that's a huge mistake that a lot of people make. But yeah, most women I work with are eating 250 up to 270, some up to 300 grams of fat per day and losing weight. But it takes time.
So that'd be almost 3,000 calories.
Exactly.
Just from fat alone.
Yep.
And
25 to 27. Yeah. It's a lot of
some
food.
people are coming from diets where they're eating 1,200 calories a day and they're expecting to lose weight. And it's the body's just fighting for dear life.
Exactly. So it's not calories in, calories out. Calories do matter, but not more than hormones. And if your hormones are shot, your body doesn't care how many calories you're eating. It's going to it's like putting your phone on airplane mode. It suppresses everything. It shuts down applications. It lowers your brightness. That's what your body does when you starve yourself.
Definitely, I don't think that you can perform optimally if you're not having a decent amount of fat in your diet. So when you started this Ketovore approach, you got your cycle back. I've read from several different sources, where, including the one that initially got me into keto, that you should cycle carbohydrates. So is this something that you would recommend to your clients? Is this something that you did to yourself? No?
No, not at all. If you eat enough fat, you do not need to cycle carbohydrates and adequate protein. Some people are doing this low protein, like 60 grams of protein per day. Yeah, you're going to need to cycle carbs if you're doing that. Your thyroid is going to hate it. But if you're eating adequate protein and high enough fat, you do not need carbs at all, even for women with amenorrhea. If women want to use carbs and they are metabolically flexible, I can help you do that. I'm not against carbohydrates, clearly, but it is not something I generally recommend because most people I've worked with have tried everything. They have food addiction, cravings, and they want to be free from that. And so abstaining from that for at least a certain amount of time helps a lot of people.
Food freedom, that's something that comes up a lot in like the SPG group, and it's something that I personally experienced too. Honestly, I've been strict carnivore for 8 months now, and I don't really eye anything else. Like, sure, I saw your cinnamon buns this morning. I'm like, okay, those do look pretty tasty. But like my son, he'll eat blueberries, he'll eat strawberries, he'll eat fruit and stuff. But I'm never even like the slightest bit interested in it because of just how good I feel. Yeah. And when I've dabbled in the past, when I've kind of gone off the wagon and dip my toes into that lifestyle again, all of the symptoms start to come back right away. So I know that you're not strict carnivore. You don't deal with any of those issues. Personally, at the moment, I've noticed that I do have like flare-ups. It'll be a gout-like flare-up for myself, or I just don't feel like on point. And I like feeling like I'm fully energized. I could do whatever I want. I could go work out as hard as I want and still have more energy afterwards. Like that means more to me than indulging in some sweets or some holiday treats, whatever it may be. So that's honestly food freedom to me.
Yeah.
You mentioned thyroid, so you had Hashimoto's at the time too. Were you ever on levothyroxine, Synthroid?
No. I was offered it. I was offered a lot of different medications, immunosuppressants, thyroid medication. I never took it because by that point I was so determined to heal without medication. I had already gone through, honestly, hell and back getting off of clonazepam. I didn't want to deal with another medication for the rest of my life. I'm not against people taking thyroid medication. It's actually one of the things I'm comfortable with people taking, but the goal should always be to not need it. And I was so determined to heal without any prescriptions that I just said, no thanks. I never took it. I did. No, I never picked it up, but I was prescribed it. Never picked it up.
And you mentioned that the carbohydrates, like if you're not eating enough protein, your thyroid's going to hate you, and also metabolic flexibility. So would you be able to describe for my audience that aren't really familiar with that, what metabolic flexibility means?
Yeah, to me, it really intertwines with fat adaptation. Is your body comfortable switching between the two fuel sources, between glucose and fat burning? Or is it very stressful? If it's very stressful and it's difficult for you to get into keto, you get the keto rash, the keto flu, I would say you're not metabolically flexible. If you have cravings every 4 hours and you need to eat sugar, you're not metabolically flexible. And so that's like a superpower. If you can switch between the two, that's a healthy state. But unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people are there anymore.
So what would be your suggestion then, just to literally ditch the carbs, become more keto, fat adapted, and maybe introduce the carbohydrates later?
Exactly, because insulin is always at the root. And one of the easiest ways to become more insulin sensitive is cutting the carbs. It's just one of the most obvious levers to pull. Now, you can do it while still consuming carbs, but it's just, it's really going to help you out to just cut the carbs, let your body learn how to use fat for fuel, and it learns very quickly if you give it the right resources. If you are still consuming carbs and then you just start eating a lot more fat, your body's just going to store the fat because it has never had the opportunity to choose that fat over the carbs. So it's wise for someone to pull the carbs away, at least for a season, and train your body to prefer the fat. Once you're there, if you want to slowly add in the carbs, you can still prefer the fat. When I was eating carbs, I was remaining in fat burning. Maybe my fat burning would go down for 2 hours and then it would go right back up to 95% fat burning. That's the goal for my clients. If they want to consume carbs, great, but let's do it in a way that your body doesn't depend on them to thrive.
Based on who you listen to, based off how I feel, honestly, I do believe that ketones are our preferred fuel source. Obviously, the body will utilize carbohydrates if they're available. And as you're stating, if you want to manage insulin, the easiest way to do so would be to remove the carbohydrates, as that is going to be the macronutrient that stimulates the highest or the greatest release of insulin from your pancreas. And insulin is also a fat-storing hormone. I also liken it to if a tanker truck full of gas was riding around, but it ran out of gas itself. But meanwhile, it has the gas tank there, and it's like, why can't you just use that? Or constantly filling up your refrigerator, meanwhile you have a stock full of meat in the freezer, but you can't access that because you never give your body the opportunity, which would be by continually feeding it carbohydrates in this case.
Okay.
So that's my analogies for that.
That's really good.
So let's talk about your pregnancies. I imagine that had to be very, very exciting for you. Your first one. Would you mind taking me through what you did for the first pregnancy? Did you go with like a typical OB or midwife, or what did you do your first pregnancy?
So we did go to a hospital because it was my first, and I was a little nervous. And we live 40 minutes away from the closest hospital that has delivery. So we went with the hospital, but I came with a birth plan, and I had doulas. And my birth plan was printed on multiple pieces of paper in large writing: no vaccines, no circumcision, child does not leave the room, like all the things. Don't crowd the room, no testing, like you are not touching this baby with any of your crap. And I put it on walls, the door, and they respected it. And they knew we wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. So it was okay. Kind of a pain, hospitals are not fun, but it was good. It was 6 hours of labor, only around like 40 minutes of pushing. It was pretty short for my first, is what I'm told. And I did have back labor, which was very painful, but it was a natural birth. So this next one, I am like 95% sure we're going to do a home birth. It just feels right. I don't want to go back to a hospital. It's exhausting. I hate the lights. And I know that birth is God's design. Like, we were never designed to be in this fluorescent lighting and be checked every 2 seconds. I just don't want to deal with it. And so that's what we're leaning towards. And I'm super excited.
Nice. That's awesome. You had a birth plan and you went in there, and that's what people don't understand is, number one, because our first birth, we were planning a home birth and we got transferred to the hospital by our midwife, still was able to deliver vaginally and unmedicated. And same thing, I had to watch them like a hawk. I'm like, no, you're not doing this. But people don't understand that you can decline damn near everything.
Right. You can say no. They're not going to hold you down. You can say no. They might give you nasty looks. They might ask you again, but don't be afraid of your doctor. Like, I feel the same way. Like, you walk in there and you're calling the shots. Also, you're paying them. You're just using the facility.
Did you deny any of the other testing, or so you said you went to the hospital first because you weren't comfortable? Did you go through the gestational diabetes testing?
No, I didn't do that. I took some blood sugars. I gave her my numbers, and she's like, "Okay, you're good." So I didn't do any of the tests. We did do ultrasounds because I was very curious, but we didn't do them as frequent as they were offered. We did the gender blood test, but anything like the gestational or like testing for autism and stuff like that, I'm not a fan of. I don't really think it's necessary. It's God's perfect design. Like, I don't really need to know. We'll know soon enough. The gender, I'd like to know because, I want to buy clothes. I want to prepare. I want to think of names and stuff like that. I don't know how people can wait on that. But yeah, other than that, we tried to keep it pretty simple.
Mhm. Right now, Jade's in her second pregnancy. She's 35 weeks now, so baby will be coming
So
soon.
soon.
And it's a surprise for us at the moment.
Oh,
Not my
I don't know how you
decision,
do that. Wow.
not my personal decision, but it's her pregnancy. It's not mine. I support her,
Respect. Mad
and
respect for her.
we're going the free birth route. So yeah, we had our run-in with the hospital, and we're not really interested anymore either. What was your dietary approach at the time with the first pregnancy? Were you keto?
Mostly carnivore. Mostly, yeah, it was keto, mostly carnivore. Around that time is when I reintroduced bread, sourdough bread. So I had that near my third trimester, but most of the pregnancy was a carnivore pregnancy. I got a crazy craving for apples. So near the third trimester, I was having some apples and sourdough, but other than that, it was mostly carnivore. Now, when I'm pregnant, I just need more variety. So it's like the carnivore pizza or the chicken tenders. You know, I don't want just a steak on a plate every day. And I could eat that when I'm not pregnant. So I do need variety, but it was carnivore.
Wow. And that's not honestly, that's why I wanted to do this interview with you because I haven't really come into many women that have gone through a pregnancy carnivore. Was there any hiccups for you? Did you experience
No,
any nausea?
no, no nausea except for one day. I did actually get sick. I remember we missed church and then it went away. Same for the heartburn. I had heartburn one night, drank some peppermint tea. It was one instance, the entire pregnancy. It was almost as if I wasn't pregnant. It was that smooth of a pregnancy. This second one, I can tell that it's much more of a demand on my body. I'm still breastfeeding David. So it's a lot of work. So I feel it in my energy. Breastfeeding suppresses progesterone, and that's been sort of a hiccup, but I'm in the second trimester now, and the placenta actually takes over progesterone production. So I'm already feeling a little bit better, just more stable hormonally. But overall, it's been great. And, you know, not once have I thought maybe I need to eat carbs. No, not at all. I know actually it was the opposite. My body said, I don't need any of that noise. I just want you to eat all the fatty meat. It was clear as a bell. And that was really cool. I wasn't expecting that.
Mm, that's awesome. Since you're breastfeeding still, how do you feel like that approach um, affected your milk supply? Have you had any issues?
No, I'm actually an overproducer. So I donate milk to women in the area. I produce gallons extra, like hundreds of gallons. We have 6 chest freezers. I have a whole freezer for my milk.
Huh.
So my
Gee.
supply has gone down since becoming pregnant, but I'm still producing. And it is 100% nutrition. And I will also say electrolytes and minerals are huge. With breastfeeding, any woman who has trouble, drink more electrolytes and minerals, take iodine. Those things, if I waver, my supply wavers directly.
I love that you mentioned iodine because that's my number one hack for having really, really intelligent babies. So
Oh
props to you,
yeah.
Mama.
Oh yeah.
You're doing the right things. So what would you say? You said the electrolytes. Is it also the fat that contributes
Yeah.
then to the milk
Oh,
supply?
totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, your fat is the precursor to your sex hormones. So if you want balanced hormones and if you want them to be upregulated, you need enough cholesterol, which primarily is the saturated animal fat. So that's also huge for sure, just as important, if not more.
And do you think that you'll take any type of different approach with the second pregnancy, or you just feel like you are sticking with that whole high fat approach and that's going to suit you again for this one?
I'm just going to listen to my body. You know, it's always going to be whole foods. It's always going to be animal based because I know that's what my body craves. I
Mm.
can't go a single day without eating eggs. Like my body is like, I need this. I can go months without eating berries or apples. Those are enjoyable and refreshing sometimes, but I'm just going to listen to my body. As long as it's real whole food and animal based, I'm fine with just listening day to day. But for right now, I'm pretty locked in with heavy meat. Like I had a pound of beef after those cinnamon rolls this morning
Uh,
because they were
um,
satisfying, but they didn't satiate me. And then I had the beef and I'm like, okay, that's what I actually needed. And that's just how it goes.
do you track your macros at all, or is this strictly just an intuitive approach?
Right now it's intuitive because like before this, I was dialed in. I was determined to get all of my baby weight off. I wanted to get shredded, got close to shredded, and then I got pregnant again. Once you're pregnant, it's like this is not the primary goal, is not being shredded. It's about honoring your body, listening to your body, and tracking kind of distracts me from that. So what I really stay on top of is, am I eating enough? So if I am just not hungry or having a aversion, I might track my food to say, do I have to eat again today? But I'm not tracking macros and like, okay, I got to hit these numbers. Nothing like that.
Mhm. So you said an aversion now that you're pregnant, but what about prior to pregnancy? How do you know when you're eating enough?
I was tracking prior to pregnancy to dial in. I wanted to get pretty lean. So I'm always doing 1 gram of protein per pound of healthy body weight. And a slight deficit for me was around 2,200 calories. So I was filling that with carbs and fat, which was plenty of food. But now that I'm pregnant, I'm probably eating closer to back to my maintenance, which is 2,500 plus maybe 200 to 300 more. So I'm getting up there. But it's just very intuitive. And even when I do track, it's not a daily thing. It's like a weekly check-in, especially if I reintroduce different recipes or different foods. But otherwise, I am definitely a creature of habit. I meal prep. I make things like, hey, I'm making elk chili. I know generally my macros, and it's not about being precise for me. It's not a bodybuilding competition, but I do have goals. And so if I know that I'm roughly hitting my goals, I'm happy enough. And that's just my comfort level. I also like to track because I like data. I am a data nerd. I like tracking my fat burning. I like checking my glucose sometimes, even though that's super boring. It's always the same. But I enjoy learning. And so if I'm experimenting with anything new, then I like to see what's going on.
Would you suggest that for any of the clients that you're working with too? Like the people that
Yeah.
are chronic undereaters and they
Oh,
really
yeah.
struggle with eating enough. You have them
Most
track?
people I work with, I have them track. Yes, because what you measure, you can manage. I know that tracking is not popular, and it's very attractive to say just eat meat until you're full, but that doesn't work for the people I work with. They've already tried that. A lot of people are leptin resistant. They can't just trust their appetite. A lot of people are chronic undereaters, or their cortisol is so elevated that it blunts their appetite and they're not eating nearly enough. So there has to be accountability. And in order for people to hit their optimal fat to protein ratio, support their body and eat enough protein for their body, if you want to heal your thyroid, if you want to reverse your osteoporosis, you need to be accountable to eating enough protein every day. And you do that by tracking. And so it just depends. If someone is triggered by tracking, I'll say, okay, I want you to track for 1 day, take a picture of your meals, and that's the minimum amount of protein you have to eat in a day. That way, at least you have some layer of understanding. Otherwise, I haven't really done my job. I want people to learn how to support their bodies.
And do you see that women or men, I don't know if you work with men too, that
Yeah.
initially they may actually gain weight, similar to what Bella would say, where the body's going to prioritize healing and the weight loss would come
Sometimes,
after?
sometimes, but in many cases, they lose weight. And really, the way that I baby step it, what I said in the beginning, you don't just do it overnight. You increase
Yeah.
very slowly. It's just a reverse diet. That is to mitigate weight gain. And if people listen to me and they really go slowly, they don't gain weight. People gain weight when they just go all in, which sometimes you just got to do that. If you want to do that, go for it, but better go buy some stretchy pants because you're going to gain weight. That's just how it works. So I want people to avoid it if they can. But sometimes it is part of the process. Sometimes the body has to feel safe. Sometimes women don't have an accurate perception of themselves. Maybe they have body dysmorphia. Maybe they needed to gain weight. I've worked with many people who are like, oh my gosh, I've gained so much weight. And then I'm like, well, how much do you weigh now? 130 pounds at 5'6". I'm like, you are literally at a healthy weight now. You probably needed to gain that weight. So a lot of scenarios are like, let's have some real talk here. I think you're not going to lose that weight because your body needed it to be healthy.
And do you have any other type of like measures of progress that aren't strictly related to the scale? Because
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had women in the past where they're fixated on weighing 127 pounds.
Oh,
Like, you're rock
I can't
solid,
stand it.
great.
Yeah.
So
I don't like
what
the
are some
scale.
other
I
measures?
actually, from the get-go, I encourage them to take progress pictures or just, pay attention to how your clothes are fitting, because you're probably going to gain muscle on this way of eating and the scale might not change, but your pant size could go down a lot. And so when you are prioritizing healing first and protein, muscle weighs, it makes that scale go up sometimes. It can be really deceiving. So yeah, a lot of people fixate on numbers, which is upsetting to me, but I understand. I was there once. I was in 7th grade once. But I try to set people free from that and just get rid of the scale. If you need a metric, take progress pictures. I think that's amazing. Then you can see more than just a number. You see your composition changing. And that's exciting because that's hormonal. Hormones dictate your composition.
What about fasting? So fasting, intermittent fasting for myself, the OMAD 1 meal a day approach has been an absolute game changer. But how about for women, and what about during pregnancy? That's probably not the time I imagine you'd want to do extensive fasting.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend extended fasting during pregnancy or deep healing. Like if someone has hypothyroidism, you don't need to be doing an extended fast. But for pretty much for anyone, I believe 16/8 is appropriate. Everyone needs insulin to get low at night. Otherwise, you are suppressing melatonin, serotonin, human growth hormone. There are other hormones that insulin suppresses. So it has to get low every night. We are not wired or designed to be eating when the sun is down. That's our circadian rhythm. It's just how we're designed. And so anyone who's like, oh, I have to eat, I literally worked with someone who said, I have to eat my chocolate croissant before bedtime. She was adamant. I was like, I can't work with you. Like, if you're not willing to give this up. And I literally didn't work with her. So it just depends on the individual, but there is a healthy level of fasting and then there's too much. And it just depends on your goals and where you're at.
I like that you mentioned insulin and how it's going to affect all the other hormones. For those that don't know, insulin is considered the master hormone. And as we stated earlier, if you really want to manipulate your insulin, I have a program that I've been wanting to create called Insulin Manipulant for the longest of times. But the
Cool.
easiest way to do so would just be to monitor how much carbohydrate that you're consuming. It's really simple.
Yep. Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned oxalates and that you do not strict carnivore. So what do you allow and what have you found that doesn't really suit your body very well,
Yeah.
doesn't serve you? And what do you really just avoid?
I really haven't found anything that doesn't suit me. I've reintroduced so many things, even sweet potatoes, high oxalate foods, but I always consume them with mindfulness. I'm not just eating the largest sweet potato that I can find every day. Like I'm like, okay, these are very rich in oxalate. I'm going to try to stick around 50 milligrams of oxalate per day, which is a healthy dose that is not going to contribute to issues. So I'm extremely mindful, but I haven't reintroduced anything that I was like, this doesn't work well with my body. But that being said, I haven't touched seed oils. I don't get takeout Chinese. I don't play around with that stuff. I have no desire to ever indulge. That's not indulging to me. It's just poison. So I am mindful is the word I like to use.
I like that. So when people are taking a ketogenic approach, where do you feel like they go wrong? Would it be consuming the things like the seed oils and just buying into the keto marketing tactics, or just going gung-ho where they're consuming too much fats? And what do you feel like are some better strategies that they can use to optimize their...
It depends on their goals. If someone just wants to lose weight, you could do dirty keto, you know? But you can only get so far. I don't expect your mitochondria to really function optimally. I don't expect your hormones to thrive while you're eating seed oils and chemicals and all these keto treats, but you might lose weight. And so it just depends on someone's goals. If your goal is health, my advice would be one, eat adequate protein. I'm talking 1 gram per pound of desired body weight. That's still keto. A lot of these people are like, oh, my ketones aren't as high as they should be, so I'm just going to cut all my protein, and now they're high. And I'm eating 3 sticks of butter. That is not going to get you the body that you want or the health that you want long term. I promise. You might end up skinny fat. You're going to catabolize your own lean muscle, and your thyroid is not going to be happy. You'll probably lose your hair. It's not a sustainable approach. So the protein is one of my biggest pet peeves. And then just avoiding seed oils, because keto, it was the fad. So there's so many keto products, bread, candy, and honestly, it's not even keto. It has so much like fiber added to it that the net carbs are low, but it's still super high carb. That's not food. That doesn't do anything for your body. So like, just get away from that whole scam and focus on your food being medicine. And if you have that mindset, you'll start to make informed decisions that really empower you and support your body instead of thinking of it as, what can I get away with? How can I still eat junk food and lose weight? You're not going to really be happy at the end of the day. I don't think.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, honestly, you kind of have to go all in with this type of approach. Maybe it doesn't have to be long term. I consider carnivore to be a fantastic elimination diet. And then when you do reintroduce whatever foods that you are interested in the future, then it should be like a dead giveaway that this presents an actual problem for you. If you see these issues come back, pretty simple.
Absolutely.
So, Rebekah, I have absolutely loved this one. I know that we had to kind of condense this one, so I actually acknowledge you for your clarity with all this and all the little gems that you've thrown into this in a shorter amount of time. So, thank you very much for that. How would people be able to find you, and where would they be able to work with you?
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'd be happy to come back. I'll have to have you on my channel sometime. People can find me at Tailored Keto Health. That's my tag on Instagram, YouTube, and I would say I'm most active on Instagram, but I'm working on my YouTube channel.
Awesome, love it. And are you still doing what was it with Bella? Like
I would hope so. Yeah, I think we have something coming out this fall. It's not set in stone. We've been working on something since January, so just stay tuned. But regardless of when it or what it is, I'm pretty sure we'll be collaborating for years to come. She's awesome to work with.
I'm glad that collab happened. Once I saw it, I was personally excited myself. So,
oh, that's sweet.
Blessings to you guys. Congratulations again on the pregnancy. Thank you so much for joining me on this. And I would love to join you on yours in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care.
God bless.
God bless you. Bye.